This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back, everyone. There is something out there that many of us are not aware of, but it can help you heal, feel better, move your life forward. I'm referring to somatic psychology and therapy. A lot of different pieces to that type of healing modality, if you will, and we're going to dig into that and how it can help you. She is a somatic and spiritual psychologist, master somatic movement educator and therapist, clinical hypnotherapist, and so great to have her back with us. Dr. Talia Shafir is back on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Steve. Thank you.
I want to go back to the last time we got together and that word somatic, just to redefine it or define it for everybody that might have not been connected to us at that time, and then move from there. Because that word comes up. I don't think a lot of us really know what it means. What does it mean?
Well, as we said in the last time we spoke, it means the body. It refers to the body. But even the word body is very nonspecific. And I think what is helpful to understand is that somatic or somatic-based therapy, whether it's somatic movement, somatic, psychotherapy, it doesn't matter. The somatic part of it is a concept of how to reach, unravel, and unblock, and open the path to growth and expanded consciousness and all of that stuff. As opposed to, I'm only going to pay attention to what I'm thinking in the moment, or what I'm convinced is the right story, or what I can talk about. Those are all important, but they're not that. The reason why we go to the body is because the body has a lot of information. And what do I mean by that? Well, the body from the get-go moves. I was with a bunch of people in Prague about a year ago, and on a panel dealing with reflexes, early reflexes, and the traditional jargon is, we have reflexes, birth reflexes, and they disappear, and then because we don't need them anymore, and then they morph into something else, movement. Well, they don't exactly disappear. It's just that they have expanded and they become movements. And so when a baby is born, and all that, what seems like frenetic, random movements, is the baby actually creating a map, of a sensory map of proprioception. Where do I begin and end? What's the environment like now? Because before it was kind of snug, and watery, and it seemed okay, more or less. And now it's something else. The body is constantly in motion. The body is constantly giving us feedback. And so whether or not you're doing, there's some famous ones. There's EMDR, there's, in the body world, there's Feldenkrais, and there's Alexander technique, and there's yoga, and there's, you can name things to do. And if one speaks to you, or many, whatever, that's great. But if you're looking for a therapeutic angle that is somatic, then we're looking at a bunch of things. We're looking, for instance, at rhythm. We're looking developmentally what happens, and we're looking at muscles that actually develop in parallel with the psyche. We do develop in parallel. The psychological and the physical develop in parallel. And so what you get, the amount of touch you get, the amount of support you get, and when you're learning to crawl, when you're learning, all of that believe it or not, feeds into the narrative of who we are, how we're accepted, how we do relationship. And so this isn't about necessarily, going back to find, this story or that story, but it is incorporating the body's ability to reveal sensory information that helps create a more mature narrative and for us to see more about what we're doing. That's what expanding consciousness is about, to be more aware of your patterns and your strategies and how you respond to people around you.
Do
So,
you, when you first meet somebody and
mhm,
they tell you where they're at, maybe what their goals are, maybe what they're experiencing, do
mhm,
you assess all of that, put all the pieces together, and then get a vibe, a feel for
mhm.
what might work best for them?
Well, that's a good question. Um, what might work best for them is coming from a picture of, well, which piece of what training that I took would work here and there and there. So once again, I have to bring us back to a lens that is, and I would say, if I have to choose one word, essentially developmental, because what we're looking for is not just trauma, because not everything is trauma, but there is disruption. And where did that? Let's talk about the attachment system now. So where did the attachment system break down? Uh, Once again, could be a disruption, could be trauma. We'll see. But what's missing? My analogy is, it's like you take Lego, you know, and there's all those pieces, and you put one on top of the other, one on top of the other, and all of a sudden you ran out,
Yep.
and you go, oh my God, but I'm not through with the tower, So there's this little gray piece that's very small, but if I put it in the middle, then I can attach more of those blocks, and that's okay. But it doesn't make it the structure very
Stable.
secure
Yeah.
or solid. Yeah. And so, what you want to do is find out where in the narrative the somatic support is necessary. So somebody can be talking to me and I can say, okay, well, hold on a moment, because you and I did that last time. When you thought you were telling me a story, and then there went the hands, and all of a sudden you went, oh, wait a minute. And even after we finished, I have to tell you that I just, I tried that thing that you told me you did
Well,
walking
that
around the
just
playground.
uh,
Let
for
me use
clarity,
it.
that's that I did that. I would walk around the playground as a child, call it like 7, 8 years old. I would
Mhm.
get bullied all the time. I'd be by myself walking during activity period, waiting for
Yes,
it to end to go back to, get off the
but
playground. And I
but
would
it
walk
was
like that. But I didn't remember that until you talked about hand movement.
you didn't remember that. Yes, I talked about, what I did was draw your attention to it. And that's
Yes.
why I'm using it, right?
Yes.
And you actually, and I said, oh, you just did that, and you did it again. And I called attention to your hands, and you started to pay attention to the movement of your hands. You weren't aware of the first movement. Okay, but your body was. And why I bring that back is not to you know not to go back into it particularly, but after we said goodbye, and that session was over, of interview, I I stood there and I was like, oh, that's really smart, because what happens is that you actually extend your spine with this and
Hmm.
bring your body up. And I went, huh, you must have felt pretty good. you know
Well,
but
you
the
know
thing,
what?
so
You know what?
what
It
what
was a challenging time for a kid, and
hmm
it must have been impactful, or I wouldn't have done it. And repeatedly.
yes, so it was some kind of self-regulation.
Hmm.
Okay, so that it didn't doesn't mean that I'm going, oh, we should use the MDR here. I'll tell you the only time that there is a specified, now you do use a specified protocol, and even then I mix a little bit, is when we are definitely dealing with trauma. And there are pieces of trauma that don't often get talked about, which do require some different kinds of attention. But basically, I'm I'm using sensory motor psychotherapy for the treatment of trauma. And I am using, together with that, my uh, knowledge of something called body dynamics, which talk about activation of muscles, uh, arranged developmentally, and which gives support, containment, grounding, and centering. And I'm watching the person talk to me, just like I did, wasn't expecting anything. I just noticed. So what I'm looking at is if somebody starts to talk to me, and all of a sudden they're they're suddenly dropping. They're hollowing out in their stomach. The voice suddenly changes. Maybe it gets lower, or maybe they sit up, move forward, and start talking rapidly. These are all signs of traumatic something going on. And so, we will stop that. We'll work with the autonomic nervous system, and we'll make an agreement that when I notice something, I'll stop it, and if they notice something, they'll stop talking, and we go to the body. And how I describe that is very often when we have anxiety, it's our bodies trying to catch up with our minds.
Hmm.
Oh, I should be doing this. I better be doing this. I better, oh, what if this happens? Oh, we have to go here, whatever. And the breathing becomes rapid, shallow, often. There's a lot of holding, and I'm describing broad things.
Sure.
And when you stop the story, stop talking, and change the focus to what's happening in your body, meaning where's tension? Oh, my body just took a breath. Okay. Oh yeah, there's my right shoulder is up. It's higher than my left. Well, if I pay attention to it, oh, it just dropped. In other words, we differentiate between, oh, I should sit up straight. Oh, wait a minute, let me sit up straight. That came from my left brain. That came from my from my head telling my body what to do. The trauma piece is about paying attention to your body and letting your body move and resolve where the experience is being held. So that's a specific particular protocol for trauma, which I will use. Another protocol for trauma is called havening. And havening deals with, it's a very uh, efficient, very targeted process that works with the imagery that has been imprinted from a trauma in the body. And it's really interesting because sometimes, something will happen, and I'll say, close your eyes, get a picture going. Whatever picture comes up, it doesn't matter what it is, and get as much emotion as possible. So these memories, those imprints, are encoded in a protein in the
Would
brain.
would that be what I described walking on the playground after, being bullied or shut out of a, kickball game and walking like that with my hands behind my head? Is that similar to what you're referring to here?
Yes, because you got a picture.
I
Now,
do.
because we are in the context of what we're in, um, I did a little something else because we're not in a session, but still, something was brought up for you, and so I just didn't want to leave you hanging. So I had to use some imagery. Now, imagery is a very, very strong influence on the brain and how we think and what we see, because that visual cortex is there. My point, not to get deep down into havening, but what that is often very good at is the shock part of trauma.
Mm,
So there's trauma, but there's the shock piece, and we can carry, we can like forget something happened, but there's a point where there's a shock piece that we can carry with us for many years. And so you have to deal with the shock, the that time when the switch gets flipped and there's visual imagery imprinted. And and so that particular protocol works very well so that people can actually regulate, if they're having nightmares or sudden fear of going someplace, or they were triggered, or what was going on.
mm,
The other part of trauma healing is the piece of grief that follows it, and um,
mm.
that isn't often addressed. I'm sure it's addressed in many ways. It's not often, you don't often hear it as part of trauma training, because there's a there's a piece of, okay, this happened, and but who was there to protect me? Who was around? Who was around? This happened to me, and uh, wow, I there was nobody there. There's an attachment defense process called danger failed protection. So it's that mourning, that grief piece of that failed protection, which allows you to then say, and I'm okay now. And when we say I'm okay now, the body has to know you're okay. You can't just say, oh, no, no problem, I'm okay, you know, because what the conscious mind wants to do is deflect and push off to the unconscious mind part of us
Mm.
that doesn't remember, but it's there, and sooner or later something's gonna trigger it,
Lots we identified here, and just looking at it broadly from my side, a regular person. I don't run, I look at this, I study it, it's helped me immensely. But the feeling that comes up, even using, my bullying playground visual,
Mhm.
when I think of that and standing on the playground with my arms the way we described, I have the
Mhm.
feeling.
Yeah.
If you asked me to put a word to describe it, I could in a second. I already feel it. I'm there. Um,
Mhm.
it's
Right.
amazing how this all comes back. And you said the grieving that comes from the trauma. It's my belief. I would love to hear how you feel. We all are grieving all the time. So many different situations in our lives. What is grief? It's loss. So
Yes.
if you
Yes.
look at your life, there's
Mhm.
things that were unresolved where there was loss, and it could be anything. I'm not talking about the loss of a loved one, ultimate loss, but
No, you're
also
not.
loss of a job, loss of friends on the playground at 7 years old, loss of a relationship, whatever it might be. Do you feel that we're all grieving all the time?
um okay, I got to qualify that. Okay, if you're
I don't
grieving,
mean
you're
that
in
in a
the
bad
middle.
way, by the way. I'm not
No,
making this negative. I'm just that's what I
no,
feel. I think
it's
that.
not about judgment. It's raw data. Okay, it's raw data, and it's attached to a feeling. And the what I'm talking about is the realization that in a moment that you were used to being able to um, reach out and get support and protection from an attachment figure. Now, early on, it's mother. Then after 8 months, it's father, and
But I'm
whoever else
not
is
I'm not
around.
talking about
I know. I'm
individuals.
getting there. I'm
Okay.
getting there. Okay. You want me to say yes or no? I'm not going to say yes or
No, I
no.
don't.
And I'll tell you
I
why.
wanted to make sure we're on the same page. That's all.
Yeah, oh, we're very much on the same page. So here's the piece. That feeling of, let's say you're slipping. Oh, let's say you're on an airplane and there's, turbulence. And without even thinking, you grab the arm of the person next to you if it's really bad. Yeah, it happens. I've done it. Then you go, excuse me, and they're like, it's okay. I, you know, that's not that's not that piece of, oh, what a loss, or I feel that that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about literally unprocessed grief, and which affects us in ways where we don't want to socialize. We don't want to go out of the house that often. We we get really immersed in work. We do, we don't. Our sleeping patterns are affected,
Mm.
and all of this stuff because it will, if it's a more recent trauma, it will trigger early pieces, early loss.
Mm.
What am I talking about? Let's say there's uh, postpartum depression. You know, let's say a mother or father gets sick and it has to be in the hospital and isn't it has to leave the household for a time. Well, this is all experience. It's how we experience it. So as children, we experience loss. What makes it okay? What makes me say to you, I'm not going to say we're grieving all the time. I think uh, that we feel loss. I
Okay.
mean, especially now, we look around and and everything's like changing. It's like somebody,
All right.
right?
I
We feel
equate.
loss.
I got you.
Yeah,
And I said loss before, where um,
that's right.
grieving's a heavy word. So we feel
Yeah.
loss. So now
Hmm.
if I'll pivot back over. We feel
Thanks.
at every moment,
Yeah.
big or small, and it could be from way from decades ago. There's a feeling of loss that may have not been resolved, and it could be anything. Your dog ran away but came back, but there was a moment that you felt loss, and that could still be in your DNA, your cellular level, your subconscious, whatever it might be.
Except, well, it's not if someone was eventually there. It's not if you could tell somebody. It's not if you could talk about it. It's not if the dog came back. It's not, there's all kinds of things. Yes, we feel the loss, but the unprocessed grief is really in a category of its own.
Yeah.
And when you have trauma and there are there's some residue, we have to go to that place and then move out of that place. It's like you're okay. So when I want to go back to where this all ran off the rails here, which was so do somebody's talking to me and I see what they're what they're describing and everything. Do I take all these pieces and go, oh, I see what would work with them? Well, in a way, yes, it's in the moment. Mainly, if somebody is creates makes a gesture or changes a posture um, of something, I will go into that and slow it down.
Mm.
And it's the I came out of a meditation one day with this sentence, the fastest movement takes place in stillness. And I was like,
Yeah.
for days, I was like, what does that mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, we're out of time, but I get what you're
Right.
saying, and
Yes, but it's
I
true.
yes, it's true, and I only recently realized what you said because I'm never still. I'm like run around doing all the other stuff, blah, blah, blah. So now I intentionally just, yeah, I could lay in
That's
bed. I'll start thinking, call it meditation, whatever you want, but then that's where call it the breakthroughs. I went away for 4 days by myself in the middle of nowhere. What was I doing? Still sitting there
uh-huh.
looking at
That's
the
right.
ocean for hours. I'm not even kidding. Sounds crazy, but
Oh, no, it's not
two
crazy. The key
words,
is slowing down, slowing down.
life
Right.
changing. How do we change our lives through you and working with you to kind of figure this all out? What's the best way to reach you?
Best way to reach me, I'll give you a phone number now. It's 707-235-6341. And that's a US number for anybody listening in from abroad. And email. T Shafir, Tshafir at me.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. I'm just going to say that if you make a career move based on your experience, I do believe you could be an FBI profiler. Just saying. Based
Did you
on,
say we were out of time just now?
we are out of
Oops.
time.
Mm,
Maybe I hit something there. I don't know, but I
maybe
just,
more ways than one.
we'll just leave it at that. Just your keen sense of reading people. Maybe it's intuition. I don't know, but it's fascinating. Thank you for being here today. Really appreciate it.
I enjoyed it, Steve.
Yeah,
Take
we'll
care.
catch up soon. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.